Welcome to another week of Radio Melee. What's up, everybody? It's a two-man show this week, but we're doing something a little bit different because literally everybody is at Summit, and I mean more accurately, perhaps more precisely, everybody is at Mango's Mango Summit 0.5 Summit at the Cloud9 studio, whatever. So instead of excuse me, I'm fixing my Zoom. I feel like I've calibrated my Zoom very precisely for a three-man show, and now we've got two-man. I feel self-conscious about this expansive space.
Always looking good, though.
Well, thank you. But we're going to talk about Summit predictions. We're going to talk about what the people want to hear, because let me tell you, me and PP, we hit the streets of the internet, and what we noticed is all you guys want to talk about is rankings and ratings and seedings and saplings and all kinds of plants.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to plant some ideas in your head. After you call in with ! Radio Melee in the chat, you're going to get a link to join the Discord server. And once you're in the Discord server, you can literally ask us anything you want. And the theme of today, because we're gonna try to theme it, and we're going to try to pick questions that sort of tie into this, is what are almost like if you had to seed a tournament, what would you do? You know, and what is the state of the top level of Melee right now, especially coming into Summit, coming into the last couple majors of the year, and the final tournaments in the ranking period. Of course, everyone's got their takes. Everyone's got their little team that they root for. What's your team? Are you going to call in and? But I mean, there's a lot going on in the community, right, PP? It's not just about that. I know there's other things people care about right now. People were talking about L-canceling the other day. People were talking about, what else are people talking about, PP? Tell me the other sorts of things that people care about.
People have been talking about, well, I can tell you, I think this summit's kind of interesting because people have been talking about Europe. I think Professor Pro coming into this summit, not being able to, we don't usually have as much European representation as we could in the scene. And I think Summit's always been a way to equalize that. So it's cool to see so many players coming together in that way. It's also kind of cool to see people talking about seedings in like a different way, or rankings in a different way. And I think that's why there's so much talk about that right now, right? Because the results have been all over the place in a lot of ways. I think people are kind of moving towards Zayn still looking like number one right now, but after that, it still seems like people are fairly interchangeable, and things have changed so much that, I think even with all that, it's anyone's guess. But yeah, today, like Toph said, is a Summit themed episode. If you have your takes, if you have your opinions about seeding, do you not think Zayn's number one? Do you think Professor Pro is going to pop off? Do you think Soonzay is going to pop off? Do you think someone is going to get drunk and get emotional on Mango's 0.5 stream? Tell us all about it here. This is what Radio Melee is for. Summit takes today. But I know we do have a little bit of stuff pre-prepared. I don't really know what we're trying to throw on screen first, but yeah, there should be a lot of good stuff that we're looking forward to. So once again, ! Radio Melee, my chat, Toph's chat. Hop on in to the Discord server. You'll be asking questions, and we already got someone waiting, so we know that some people want to talk about Summit.
Mm-hmm. Some people want to talk about Summit. I'm flying to Summit later tonight. Which I think it's going to be a fun one for sure. I'm very excited about the theme of the event. I don't know if you saw space. That's right, the one place that capitalism is yet to corrupt. Space. You know what I'm saying? You catch that reference? You don't catch that reference. That's the Tim Curry thing.
I don't think I do, unfortunately. Okay, I apologize. I love the energy on it though.
Yeah. But okay. I mean, let's see here. I think we get the community voice out of the way now, because I actually have I have an update from a producer, Quinn, who's in my ear, telling me that he actually did compile. Just like the sweetheart he is, he actually did compile the stats, because the question was from Aiden, kind of just asking about Aiden Calvin, of course, from the Yard, coming in asking about, hey, is there any crossover viewership, right, between Super Smash Brothers Melee, and other esports?
Yeah.
And I almost jokingly said, I wonder if we could compile those answers.
Ooh.
And we actually got a little bit of a compilation here. We got some
stats.
At this. We got a little bit of listen, okay, look. No, it's not a pie chart or anything. It's not some crazy Microsoft Excel. We don't have that kind of technology around these parts. What we do have is good old drag and drop. We got some text. It looks like, okay, so obviously a ton of crossover with Ultimate. I think that makes the most sense because it's Smash Brothers. League of Legends, good amount of League of Legends. We got CSGO, Valorant sitting at 15. Good bit of Rocket League. Still a little bit of Overwatch. I feel like Overwatch is that might go up. Just with the drop of Overwatch 2. I found myself playing a bit of Overwatch 2 this week with Void and with Mango. And, I found myself thinking to myself, like, oh, maybe I'll check on Overwatch League and see how they're doing because I haven't watched in like 3 years. So maybe that goes back up with the release of Overwatch 2. But it looks like League of Legends is still the king, so to speak. And you've got chess at 4, which will count. I almost wonder if chess wouldn't be higher if not for the fact that, like, when people hear the question, what other esports do you watch? I feel like if someone asked me that, I wouldn't think to even list chess as an answer.
Is that? That's interesting.
I do.
Right. Like, how does that, like, it's almost like chess has changed so much that people answer that as an esport now. Or maybe esports are just games. Yeah.
People do. But not every, like if you said to me, what esports do you follow? I would like forget that chess would be an acceptable answer.
But people play it online so much now.
People are starting to see it that way. That's right. Hikaru got picked up by TSM, and now I think he's with Misfits. So he already did a roster.
Oh, wow. Some big news in the chess world. I had no idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing we're used to over here in esports.
Right.
So maybe that changes a couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if the chess number was even higher.
Right.
And it was just that a lot of people didn't think to list it. I wouldn't think to list it. If Aiden asked me what esports do you watch, I wouldn't think to list chess, probably. But shout outs to those of you responding who did. And shout outs to our producer Quinn for compiling that data together and making that handy dandy visualization. So with that out of the way, we actually I did ask Quinn to prepare some, potentially, I guess, I don't know if visuals is the right word, but basically, if we're going to talk about seeding, let's talk about like who's in the event, Summit. Look at that.
First,
players.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Hit me with your dude. Look at Zane with his own little region. Can we get a zoom in? We can't zoom in, right? That's too much.
Can we enhance?
Yeah, dude, look at Zane. Zane is occupying. They used to joke about.
He's got his VIP room.
Yeah, Zane literally. It's like he bought 2 seats on an airplane, right? He said, "I don't want to sit next to Leffen. I actually want the middle seat between us, so I'm going to stretch out." You see what's going on down there? We can't zoom in, but you're going to have to. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so for our audio listeners, what we're looking at right here is we're looking at players that are invited and players that were voted in. And there were columns of players, and then at the bottom, off on his lonesome, is just Zane by himself. Is this telling? Is this Summit's subtle messaging? Or is it just that there was an odd number of players invited? Who could really say? But regardless, Zane stands alone.
Yeah, Zane stands alone, and right now it's looking like he might be standing alone. I saw Mango put up a video that I actually watched this morning, coincidentally, where he was basically talking about like what his prediction, like if he had to do seedings or rankings, kind of what his thoughts are, on kind of the mess that we have right now. And his kind of take. Hang on, my computer chair got in a big fight with my headphone cable. Mango's kind of take was that. Zane's probably it seemed like Zane's kind of in the lead right now. He just has the most events under his belt, but not really by much. Not by a ton, because a lot of people have 2 to 3. Like IBW won Phantom and Double Down and one other thing. Hungrybox won 2 or 3 events. Amsta's got 2 events. Mango's got 2 events. He has SmashCon as well as what is that tournament called? Was it Riptide? It was one of those. But point is, it's like Zane's sitting at 4 if you want to do it strictly in terms of number of events you won, which is I think it's a good metric to start with. No one's that far ahead of the pack,
right?
So it's pretty,
still
pretty exciting. Definitely still competitive. So I don't even know, man. I don't even know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I do want to hear what people have to say about this, and we actually have a comment. We have from old Reddit that we're going to pull up in a little bit, talking about speculation on seeding. We could even dive into, but yeah, I mean, looking at looking at our vote-ins, and because I think a lot of people getting invited is wonderful, but I also really want to take a look at our vote-ins this time. We don't, I think in the past, if I remember Alex 19 getting voted in, and the memes and the Magic or Yingling's campaign and everything, sometimes you don't really know what you're going to get with Summit campaigns, but they ran a different voting process, and I don't know if that affected anything or not with these sorts of things, but it is interesting to see who ended up getting voted in, if I'm looking at this graphic correctly, with Null, Swift, Free Palestine, Magi, and Joshman. I don't know if there were more or not.
By the way, I gotta say, I feel like there was a JFlex in the mix. Wasn't there a JFlex in the mix?
And then I thought Kadoran also ran a campaign, but
I'm a little confused. Oh, it's the wrong summit.
Oops.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, we got there.
Whoopsie daisy.
Well, good thing for auto listeners, they don't know any better. Let me get you the actual list, because I think I just have it in my what's it called? My browser history. I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, Null's in. That's cool. I didn't know Null would be in.
That is cool.
I got really excited out of nowhere. No, but yeah, Kadoran is definitely in this time around. He's become kind of a familiar face at these things lately.
Yes.
As well as I remember the big one for me was Ralph coming from NorCal. This is, there's been a funny trend where every summit has had a Pikachu, I think is the case.
Huh.
And unless 13 didn't have 13, because 12 had Swift. 13, 13, the first summit to not have a Pikachu ever.
That's rough.
Because Axe wasn't at 12.
Mm-hmm.
But at 12 had Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Swift picked up the slack in terms of having a Pikachu in there. And then we skipped one. We had one without a Pikachu. So now we got to have two Pikachus. So Axe is back, and we got Ralph.
See.
And let me tell you, I think Ralph is going to take a lot of people by surprise, especially because I think he's got a really good counterpick strategy. I think he's got a really good counterpick strategy, and in practice,
Fox and Pikachu, for those
Fox
who
and
don't know.
Pikachu, it is actually a pretty strong counterpick strategy. Even in terms of just ease of use in tournament, like if you just, even if you're playing, imagine you're playing like another really good Fox with a really good punish game, and they take you to FD on their counterpick, and you're just like, you know what, I don't want it. It's too spicy. I'm just gonna go Pikachu. And all of a sudden, you're the one chain ramming them. They're not chaining you back. There's a lot of. I didn't realize it until I played him how flexible this counterpick strategy is, because he'd go Pikachu game 1 on Dreamland, and then I was like, okay, I lost. It was close. Maybe if the ceiling's a little shorter, I can get those kills that were taking me a long time. Okay, let's go Stadium, and then he goes Fox, and that's jarring. That's actually kind of hard to deal with. He's got Pikachu for the Marth. He's got Pikachu for even Falcon. A lot of the time, and I know he's had a lot of success with this counterpick strategy at majors, and he's definitely got the tech skill to pull it off. And I'm very interested to see how he does. I think he could actually. I think for me, I'm kind of hyping up because I feel like this is a funny summit, because usually there's some meme picks,
right?
So this time around, no meme pick. I feel like there's no real meme picks,
right?
I guess the weakest players are probably Ralph and JFlex, but
they're great.
They win their locals. Ralph won a local over SFAT. JFlex won wins locals sometimes over players like I know he's taken sets off, for example, Toussaint.
Right.
Taking sets off players like Aklo, Jojo, players like that from the New York region. So to me, it's like, we really have no slouches this time around. Which is exciting.
We've been getting a lot. I don't remember how many summits ago it was, but there was a summit not long ago where everyone voted in, took a set. And that just didn't happen. But now I think that
was the one we're just getting at, in fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think now we're getting that more and more. We're getting so much more potential for as the field narrows in a way, as more players become more skilled. I think we're seeing more and more potential for that. And so it's a very exciting time. I think Summit is kind of a great way to see so much potential for that too, because people just keep playing and playing and playing each other. So a lot of chances for everyone, which is really cool. And players get to show off their personality and a lot of cool sketches too. So it's a big win all around.
Curious what they're going to do with the format. And I got to shout out someone in my chat that was like, damn, why does the invited player pool look so invited? Shout outs to Forte VA for that comment. Just looking at my chat. And yeah, I mean, this is a point that I've been kind of making over the past couple of months, but I feel like this is a better time to watch Melee than basically ever. Just because I think they're more, there's just more god level players right now, I think, than there really ever had. There's more parity, I think, at the top level than there ever has been in terms of the number of players who could feasibly win a major. I mean, I'm looking at this invited player pool, and I feel like everyone down here could win a tournament, arguably, except maybe Pipsqueak. But I mean, Pipsqueak's still pretty good. Pipsqueak won Low Tide City, so it's messed up how good the top level play is right now. It is so messed up. And I think what's really cool, and I hope we get into this a little bit when we get the callers on for this episode, but to me, what's really cool is thinking about the players who are kind of counters to other players. Which players are kind of... And the funny thing to me is that how a lot of that logic has really flipped lately. Because it used to be, there was a period where it felt like Cody would be beating Mango and Zayn would be beating Cody. And now it's like backwards and like Zayn... Okay, I know Cody finally got beat by Zayn at LSI, but yeah, Cody took three sets or so against Zayn in a row, and now Mango's kind of beating Cody, and I don't know what's what anymore. I can't make heads or tails of anything. So hopefully some of you can clear that up for us when we start getting the callers on.
Yeah, and something else, I think there's another storyline that I think is something I just want to highlight a little bit here. I think, I'm sure Jmook is quite hungry to do well, because I think he's had a little, not a lot, but a little bit more struggle lately. Haven't heard, he hasn't gone quite as deep as normal. I mean, with Big House 7th, and I think there was something shortly after that. I think he's really looking to shore up stuff and go farther. It doesn't mean he's slumping by any means. He's still doing fantastic. I just think some stuff that's gone closer just hasn't quite gone his way. And I mean, I still think about this. I still talk about this on stream sometimes. I mean, I think most people didn't know who he was until Genesis this year, and now we're talking about, he got 7th. That's not, and so it's funny to, so I just kind of want to put a reminder out there that this guy, is still very, very serious, and we could see things turn around really quickly for him. So I wouldn't be surprised for Jmook to surprise everyone at this.
Likewise, I see Jmook as one of these players who's rapidly. Okay, I think he's at a skill level now where he's good, and I think for now it seems to be mostly a matchup problem.
Sure.
Right, but I see him as somebody who gets really good at matchups really fast. He solved. I'm not gonna say solved, but he figured out Pikachu. Let's say over the course of one tournament, he got 3-0'd and then 3-0'd him back the next day with Axe at Shine. We saw a similar adjustment from one week to the next with Amsa, where he had never taken even a game off Amsa, and then on Saturday at offseason, he finally takes a game. And then on Sunday, takes a set, loses the tournament though. And then the next weekend at LSI, he 3-0's Amsa. Right. So to me, the big thing, I think for me with Jmook to take a major, I think there's two questions for him. I think the first question is, does he shore up his weak matchups, including Amsa, which I think he's mostly done, HBox, which I think he's done, but that's just a tough matchup. And then I think the other side of things is the Foxes. Like, it seems like he's pretty good against Fox. He definitely takes sets here and there, but I don't think he's the favorite against Leffen. I don't think he's the favorite against Cody.
Doesn't seem like it at the moment.
Doesn't seem like it, and it's just a hard matchup. I get it.
Yeah.
But I think to me, it's the kind of matchup where if he's playing hot, it looks fine. But he's got to be playing hot. Like, he can't drop shit. And if he can play like that, and if he can reach a level where playing like that becomes the norm, then I'm not really worried about him. But to me, that's the question, is can he get there? Because I think every Sheik player in the chat, every Sheik player listening in or watching on YouTube, you guys all know that you can never sleep on Fox McCloud. That matchup's just hard. It's like, yeah, you can tech chase him to death and all that, but I think if you ask any Sheik player, like, what's the nightmare matchup? In a lot of ways, obviously there's ICs and stuff, but I think every Sheik player has a little bit of Fox trauma deep down. You don't have to talk to them for very long to kind of unearth some of that suffering. It's just a hard matchup. Yeah, so
absolutely
that persists up till the highest level. So it is what it is. I guess I gotta say real quick too, because I gotta shout out again Forte in chat. If there's one player I feel like is conspicuously missing from this event that I kind of wish was here, you know who it is.
The one player.
One player. Got fourth last weekend.
Got
2 weekends
fourth
ago.
last week. Oh man, and it's a good thing that I remember tournament results really well.
No, well, I'll say it and you'll go, oh yeah, that's right. Slug.
Oh man, you're right.
Right?
Man.
Dude, what's going on with Slug? Is he number 10?
Dude, that would be insane.
I mean, his wins are really good.
I don't know what his losses are, but yeah, I mean,
HBox 4 times.
Okay, that seems. I don't for the whole year.
I don't know. Like, I think he lost him crazy. He lost him like 2 or 3 times at LSI. I think he lost him at like double down.
Oh, if it's just HBox, that's pretty good.
I don't know. And like some Peach players probably. That's always the shit thing to me about Icy's players is like for every great Icy's player, like they have some terrible wins to like. Not even terrible objectively. Like objectively speaking, it's a really hard matchup, and I'm like, yeah, it looks really like a struggle. But like I remember Slug he got like second at TMT one week to Cody, resetting the bracket, and then the next week I remember he lost to Malachi round 1 of winners, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that makes sense.
It happens.
It's Icy's Peach. I don't know what to tell you.
Forward air.
Yeah, so it is what it is. Anyway. Not that I just thought we should shout out Slug before we got too far into the.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he does show up, and when he always goes deep when he goes to these LAN events, especially, which is great. And,
yeah,
I think we'll hopefully be seeing more of them. But just
I'm sure we will. Sure we will, just not here. Yeah, not here.
Yeah. Maybe we could switch over and look at some possible seeding and talk about that a little bit before we look at our callers.
Let's do it. Man, okay, Reddit. Pac-Man Ultimate. Yes, that's what we love. That's how you know someone's going to be objective when they play a character like Pac-Man. Don't read too hard at anything I just said.
I won't.
Zane, number 1. Yep, that checks out. HBox number 2. Yeah, HBox got second, right, last weekend. I think Mango third is pretty reasonable. I know he didn't have like the best showing ultimately at LSI, but I think he did a lot better than it looked like he might. And also, I think something people forget, even though Mango only got 5th last weekend, or I think actually 7th, he kind of had one of those summit 7th places where sometimes people do really good Friday and Saturday, and then they just kind of don't do that good in the bracket. And Mango kind of had that because he beat Zane and Cody.
He also came into it being seeded first, right? So even if he got 7th, I mean, he went down a little, and he's still up there.
That's right. Is anyone here a little bit surprised? I guess Leffen, in theory. Like, Leffen got 3rd last weekend, but I still feel like Amsa maybe over Leffen makes sense just because Amsa is off a streak of like, I mean, he won 2 back-to-back like majors in Big House and off-season. Plup's always a question mark in some ways because he doesn't go to as many things, but
right. So how do you change his seed to how do you have the decay in there and everything?
Yeah. Right? And I almost feel like with Plub, I'm the kind of person where I'm feeling like, man, I wouldn't want him in my bracket. Like, he's the 7th seed in this list. And if he is the 7th seed, then that kind of sucks for HBox in a way, right? Because like, I feel like with Plub, that he shows up at Summit too. He always plays really good at Summit usually, I feel like.
And he's been doing good generally lately too.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm with most of this though. For sure. The bottom then is interesting to me. I think you could make some arguments in whatever directions. Prof qualifying the way he did was really impressive. I actually forget how JFlex. Oh, JFlex got voted in. That's right. Right. So, it is what it is.
So again, for our audio listeners, the list in order, so you can follow along, is Zane, Hungrybox, Mango, IBDW, Amsa, Leffen, Plup, Jmook, Wizrobe, Axe, Kadoran, Soonsay, Pipsqueak, Professor Pro, JFlex, and Ralph. That is the full list in order. Not of objectively seeding it. We don't know what that is, but there is a seeding prediction from Weird Mathematician 38 from Reddit that we're just running with it, and it seems like a reasonable list. I don't know. It's all very contentious, but it seems fine. And if you disagree, you can call into the show.
I'm curious what you think about the lower end.
Yeah. I don't. I think the hardest three are probably the bottom three, right? Professor Pro, J-Flex, and Ralph, because they mostly have been in their own spots and they haven't like traveled around as much. And so I mean, maybe it's fine. I don't really know. The Professor Pro win over Triff, I think, has to be pretty good. I would imagine. I think Triff was still doing pretty well.
Well,
And so
Triff beat Leff in that tournament.
Right. So
Right.
I think that's got to be a big part of it, I would imagine. And then J Flex versus Ralph. I don't know. I have no idea.
That's a hard
Ralph,
one.
you were saying Ralph had the SVAT win, which has got to be really good. I don't know a lot about Ralph's results overall. I know he's been doing good. I know J Flex has also been doing good, but I don't keep track of everything. So
I think both of them.
That's very tough to say.
I think both of them have had some really good results lately. Hard to call. What I will say about the bottom end in particular, but also all of the seeding lists, is you do got to remember it is Summit. There's always a bunch of matches that are basically just played to determine seeding going into the final bracket. And so ultimately there's usually a lot of movement just based on how people are playing on Thursdays and Fridays. And so in particular, that lower end where there's going to be people are going to run into those three-way tie situations. People are going to run into, I mean, I don't know what the exact format is going to end up being. I assume they will use kind of the group stage pools into a gauntlet format into the final bracket. That's what they've been doing for the past couple. I think
that's what it looked like from what I saw.
Sort of right. So, and if that's the case, there's always some surprises. There's always some surprises coming into that final bracket. Yeah. And so to be honest with you, from that perspective, the seeding matters. It does matter a lot less than it matters a lot less than it would if this was a conventional double elim. I mean, we saw the same thing at Ludwig Smash Invitational. Anytime you've got one of these invitational style events with one of these more interesting formats, you're going to get some shenanigans. And at LSI, Zane got picked by Axe to be his because he was 3-2. Zane almost didn't even make the top cut. Zane literally took 2 losses in the group stage, in the pool stage, and then won the tournament. And so Zane was one of the low seeds going into the bracket. And, you can say, oh, I don't want to play Zane. Oh, this seeding. Do anything about that. I mean, if Zane played bad in pools and he gets a bad seed, then Zane gets a bad seed, and that's just how the cookie crumbles, So, take all of this ultimately with a grain of salt. But I think what is for sure is that I think there are going to be some funny surprises, and I will preface the tournament too by just saying that every summit, this always happens. Every single Smash Summit, man. We come into the final day, the final bracket, thinking, "Oh, this guy did so good in group stages. This guy did so good in Gauntlet. They got to be a shoo-in for the tournament." And there's always an example of at least one player who played really good in groups and in brackets, and just kind of shits the bed or in gauntlets, and then shits the bed in the bracket. And there's always some people who played bad all weekend and step it up on Sunday. And I'm thinking about that one when Cody had his breakout tournament where he beat Johnny and Mango and HBox, and he'd been playing awful in pools. Everyone was getting a piece of Cody up until the singles bracket started, the double in bracket started. So just remember that nothing is as it seems at Smash Summit. Least of all this time. Thank you.
Well said. I don't really have too much to add on to that other than, I wonder what the difference in mindset or everything needs to be for the pool success versus the bracket success, but maybe we can get one of the Summit competitors on to talk about that next week, which will be, I finally remembered, next week will be our last Radio Melee for the season. Probably should have said that earlier. But yeah, last Radio Melee of the season's next week. We'll Summit recap. Hopefully we'll get one of the people on from Summit, maybe the winner. We'll talk about all that next week. But yeah, telling you about that now. Anyway, Toph, how you feeling about moving on to taking some callers? We got a few waiting.
Let's get some callers in here. That's right. Our first caller for the episode is going to be Professor K, joining Professor PPMD. I don't, whatever. I'm trying to make a joke about professors. Hey, welcome, Professor K. What's your question? Where are you calling in from?
Hey guys, it's Professor K. I'm calling in from coastal Georgia, and my question is today, it's more unclear than ever who the number one player in the world is. How much scrutiny should the best player in the world have? Should they win every tournament they attend, like the dominant runs that Armada and HBox won? Should the players who go to a ton of majors be penalized for doing poorly, even if they're attending a lot of events? Or on the contrary, do players who not go to a lot of events but win the majority of them be rewarded with that number one rank?
Yeah, I think this is something that we kind of grappling with right now. It seems like, as long as your head to head versus other people is generally better, and as long as you're going to enough, and it also seems like people are also saying as long as you've, won maybe more tournaments than everyone else, then that seems like a pretty clear number one for the year. And that seems to be where most people are. There's a special emphasis on winning tournaments. And it's interesting. I saw a discussion people were having, and even though a lot of people had Jmook fairly high, there was actually some people that made a post that forgot to include him, even though he had been getting very high results, very consistent results. But because he hasn't maybe won something like maybe some of the other people that have been in contention are, he's flown under the radar a little more. And so I think there's something about that, which is the tournament winning aspect itself, which seems to really be heightened.
That resonates with people.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason it resonates with people is because it's what the top players care about. And maybe you can speak to this because you obviously were at one point one of the best players in the world. You were on that level.
Right.
And it seems like when I listen to the top players talk about the game, they would almost rather get, it's like you'd rather, if there's 2 majors on 2 weekends, you'd rather get 5th and 1st than like 2nd and 2nd in a way, because 2nd and 2nd feels like 2 failures, whereas 1st and 5th feels like 1 victory and 1, you know what I'm saying? At least that's the way, I know they haven't expressed that exact thought.
Yeah, no, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Because the way Mango talks, the way Zane talks,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there are different ways to approach it. I don't think I ever really thought like that, but I think the Armadas, the Mangos, the Zanes do. So there was a lot of if you ain't first, you're last. Type of talk. And that's something that Mango actually used to say like a decade or more ago. If you're not first, you're last. And so that was the thing. And so if you had that first, you could at least say, well, at least I won. And you're probably right. It probably would be better to get 1st and 5th. I think there is something about getting double second where you're like, well, I'm right there. And I think that was kind of like that probably messed with Jmook a lot, right? Like if you just went further, and then so I think that does mess with you. But if you, and so I think there is something, but I do think there's something really true to be said about overcoming everything and making that last step. Like, I think, it's kind of like how people can, sabotage themselves. Like you'll see spaghetti melee at the end, or like there'll be someone that could get an upset, then they start getting really nervous, and the top player comes back and beats them, or the higher seed comes back and beats them, right? And it's the same type of thing where you're like, okay, well, I could do this, but am I really ready for it? Or can I, but it's this person and they're so good and I'm not, or whatever, right? And so I think, going that extra step, going that extra mile to go all the way and win, I think is its own thing. And with all the extra pressure that already comes from tournaments, making that final journey, changing the 2 to a 1, even though like, I guess you could say in an objective sense, it's just like one more set or something. There's probably an extra thing to it. So it makes a lot of sense to me why they would focus on that. I don't know if I necessarily would personally think of it quite the same way, but it makes sense. It seems like very fair to factor that in that way.
Right. I kind of feel like a number 1 player, like when I think of, because the thing is, the field is so close right now that I almost would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if whoever ends up getting ranked first doesn't feel like first place to everybody.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's if it comes down to one guy who's got higher highs but lower lows, and it comes down to kind of what you value. Like there's just so much contention between the top players right now. It's going to be, I think it could be a close call unless Zane just goes on a tear. If Zane wins like 1 or 2 more majors, because it feels like he's just a little bit ahead of the pack right now. Again, not by much, but I was kind of remarking on like, there aren't that many majors left. And like, let's say any of these guys that has 2 majors under their belt, let's say Amsa, if Amsa wins 2 more majors in the period and doesn't really, do too terrible, like that's probably just enough. Like,
what if people start tanking? Slug shows up to the rest of the majors. Slug sweep.
Right. I don't know. I almost I wonder how much people are going to care about bad losses. And when I say bad losses, I mean like people even like Slug. Like if Mango, that's almost something that the Spacey players and basically it seems like everyone but HBox kind of has to worry about right now is that like, everyone's kind of got a loss to Slug, for example. Zayn has a loss to Slug, J-Mook, Mango.
Well, Slug came very, very close to beating HBox.
That's true. And losers,
I have him marked down as like the next player that's going to be like sweeping the top 8 in general because I remember I think it was at Big House. I saw Slug was going up against HBox and I said, like my brain definitely has HBox winning that by a good decent bit. And I think he did win like 3-0 or 3-1, but I was like every time Slug goes up against HBox, it gets closer and closer, and I just feel like one day it's just going to be like it's going to happen.
Yeah, he's won online. I just, I think the only thing there is like there's always this question in that matchup of like what if like HBox hasn't really been playing that campy. And I always like wonder like what if he just goes Chudad mode again?
I saw him do it at the Ludwig tournament. I saw him do it at the Ludwig tournament, at least on platforms, maybe not on the ledge, but it's not as good against ICs to do it on the ledge. But when he got the lead and he played safe, he messed Slug up. But it was about getting the lead in the beginning and how well Slug could prevent that. And Slug was doing a pretty good job of preventing that, but then there were matches where he didn't. And the matches where HBox got the lead, Ludwig switched to watching a different set, and because HBox was chewed at moding him. So that's out there. But I think Slug has just done such a great job of playing the first stock well, which I'm sure he's very aware of how important that is at this point.
I agree, and I think that ultimately my question or my answer to this question is that like for better or for worse, I don't know that it's gonna feel that convincing. I mean, we can say that we want the number one to have these qualities and those qualities, and we care for this and that. But at the end of the day, it's just whoever edges out. It's like they say, right? You don't have to outrun the bear in the forest. You just have to outrun the guy who's with you. Right? That's kind of what's going on here. And I think that like whoever's going to be number one is just going to be whoever outruns their peers. I think it's going to be kind of a bloodbath going into the ranking period. To be perfectly honest with you. If there's someone who's just a little bit better than everybody else, even if they had some low lows, at the end of the day, it's just more competitive than it's ever been.
Yeah, and I think really the only other thing I have to say about it is I think it's okay for it to be contentious, and it's okay to not have it be clear. I think we might be stepping into an era of that more, and not because of a balance patch or anything else, but because of everyone just getting better or the field just having so many different matchups and the meta changing the way we're changing it. And I think that's okay. I think, but all that to be said, I think it's great to have an ideal of a certain best player but it's also great to value different things. That's kind of why it's nice to have, for example, a panel of people that do rankings that value different things so that we don't just maybe look at it one way, and that's kind of nice. So that's all I got to say about it.
I think it's super awesome how kind of level the playing field is for all these top players. Like I also follow Ultimate's like top competitive scene, and everyone had debates for weeks. I mean, we all know that MKLeo is the number one player, but he had like a small like a month, like 2 months where he wasn't getting like first, and he got 9th at his first North American major, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's washed. He's not number one in the world," even though it was very clear. That. It was very clear that he was the number one player, and then he just swept through the Ludwig Invitational, and it was like, "Oh, yep, no." But with Melee, it's totally different because we all went into Big House thinking, "All right, this is going to be the tournament that decides who's going to be making that push for number one in the world." And then Amsa won, and then he won the next week, and it just completely blew up in our faces, and it's just awesome.
Right, and I think we're going to see more stories like that as we continue to go through. But I think we've gone over the question pretty well. We had some good questions lined up, so we are going to have to cut this one off now. But thank you, Professor K, for calling in. Do you have any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Shout outs to Radio Melee. You guys are great. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing, this is not really a plug, but just like I'm a senior in college right now. I'm doing my bachelor's degree in film production, and we are going to be doing a documentary, unfortunately not on 3 Melee players, we're going to be doing on 3 New England Ultimate players. So
Oh wow.
I hope similar to there was a SoCal version of the doc of a doc like this called 60 Frames. I think it was produced by the SSBM tutorials team. So we're going to be doing something similar like that. We don't have any. We're just in pre-production, but hopefully, if I get onto Radio Melee, I'll have something more concrete to promote. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Sounds good. Take care, gamer.
No Everyone worries. Go check that out when that gets more underway, I suppose. Thank you so much. And our next caller is going to be, looks like it's Sean McD. I hope I'm saying that correctly. There's a little dot over the A. Hello.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah, that's Sean. The A is the that's how you spell it in Irish.
So hell yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
No worries. So yeah, my question is about HBox and commentary, not commentary, but just community discourse and how we talk about Hungrybox.
Yeah, sure.
Is that I mean, he was dominant for 3 years, right? And he still is in contention for number 1. But I feel like as a casual spectator, who like doesn't play the game competitively or anything like that, I don't understand why he's so good. And I get it kind of mixed up with just Puff as a character because he's the only one doing it since Mango, right? So I think, is there a way of developing like a lexicon or vocabulary around HBox that makes us or helps us to understand just why he's a top player? Because I feel like from the way people talk about Zane and IBW and Mango, I can kind of gauge why they're good or what they're good at, or what situation. As in, like, a specific example would be like every casual spectator knows that Wizzy is an incredible tech chaser, right? But I just don't think there's anything like that for HBox in terms of understanding why he's so good. And I do think it was something kind of Ludwig did well at the LSI because he was, he's a Puff player. You just don't see that bombs that often. So, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that and kind of developing that lexicon?
We got to get Ludwig to more tourneys.
Yeah, I will start by saying I fully agree with you. Yeah, first of all, we need Ludwig to commentate more Puff sets. He really does seem to know a lot about the character.
Yeah.
But you're right. I agree completely. And I feel like there's 2 things going on here. I feel like one of those things is, I think it is tougher, at least for me. And I'm sure PP, you used to analyze this guy at a very deep level to try to beat him. So I'm sure, but even then, I guess back then there was a bigger discrepancy. There's other good Jigglypuffs now, but obviously they're still not as good. But I think you're right. It's harder to pinpoint, and I think what's tough about HBox is some of the things you want to attribute to him, because you can sit here and say, oh, he's so patient, and he slows the game down or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And but he's not always that patient. And he's got and there are these very vivid memories that we have of watching him sometimes where he kind of loses his patience. And I think what kind of ties in, and the reason it's tough to kind of categorize him as a top player sometimes is I think for people who are very, who are closely watching the scene, for example, in the online era. And we remember some of these sets that HBox was dropping to these people where he was looking at his Twitch chat or whatever. And I think unfairly, I think people kind of conflate HBox, like the way it's like when other people play bad, you see it in their execution. You see people like Leffen or Cody or Mango, when they're playing bad, they're not moving as well. But with HBox, it's a little bit more nebulous. He's just he's drifting in a little more. And you almost need to look at the player cam to know he's playing bad. I remember at Shine, he was looking really exasperated using a J-Mook. And I don't feel like I need to look at the player cam for any of the other top players to know if they're playing poorly. But I feel like with HBox, in a weird way, I feel like it's one of the biggest and quickest tells is I look at the player cam and he just looks exasperated, like he doesn't want to be there. But I mean, yeah, you're right. So with that said, PP, do you have any insight as to how would you? Because I was actually at the gym last week talking about this with Laudanis, and we were trying to. I was asking him, dude, what makes HBox better than the other Puff players? Do you know? And Well, yeah, in bubble theory, but like, it's like I have abstract answers, but I do not really have a concrete answer.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, the sad thing is I could tell you things that some of these other puff players definitely do better than HBox. So then I'm kind of like, well, HBox must be doing more things, right? Because he's winning more. But I know for a fact that Toussaint Diaz out of Marth throws better. I know for a fact that, most of the other puffs at this point are better at reaction resting. So what is it?
Yeah, that's the thing. Oftentimes when you watch HBox in a tournament,
Right.
commentators will go, how come he didn't rest there? So I know what he's doing wrong, but I don't know what he's doing well, right? Because he's clearly just different, right? But
I will say there are two, 3 things I can immediately point out before I even sorry, I kind of threw to you, PP, and I'm cutting you off. But
it's all good.
2 things I can point out. I think HBox is the pioneer of Puffs down air. I think he's the best at using that move. I think he's the pioneer of Puffs up air. I think those are ridiculously strong moves. I think for a long time, Jigglypuff was considered almost a two-dimensional character where you had Bear, which was great, but it poked this way. And I think HBox really, like when I see him threaten people above him with up air, I think his precision with that move is just maybe people are learning from him now, but there was definitely a period where he was the only puff I felt like who could use that move properly. Same with downer and his conversions off downer. I felt like he was at least for a time he was ahead of the field. And even though I will say I don't think he's the best at hitting these crazy rests, I think that he, a conversation we got into at LSI with like somebody like Zane. Dewan was on the mic saying, how come Zane doesn't go for all the pivot tippers he used to? I feel like he used to do more up throw pivot tippers, and his punish game used to be a little bit more bold. And I kind of postulated that maybe for somebody like that, when you're looking to win your first event, you're going to play bold and you're going to go for these bold punishes. But when you're looking to maintain your title, when you're looking to stabilize as a top player, you have to also shore up. You almost, I feel like you see this from a lot of the top players. They stop going for these really difficult punishes because they just want to be able to execute consistently, I think, at a subconscious level. And I wonder if some of that's happening with HBox. I don't think he's hitting these crazy rests, but I will say very frequently I see HBox get these huge confirms into death where he just kind of combos a guy across the stage and into a bear string off the stage. And I'm just like, oh, that was a really good punish. And he opted not to rest, but he didn't need a rest punish for it. So I will say his punish game, I think, is very good. It's just that I think that it's just not with the rest, let's say the rest setups. That's kind of the way I look at it. But PP, what do you think?
Yeah, so Hungrybox is a strange player. We don't have, as EMP Lemon said, there will never ever be another one. To paraphrase a little bit. So this guy, what Hungrybox cares about more than any other player that I've seen so far, at least like the way Hungrybox does it, is about being patient. And it's important to know that first. Because I think a lot of people, when they think about Hungrybox, they're like, that's all he is. But when Zane came on, I think Zane said something really important. So I'm just going to tie it back into that so it'll stick a little easier if I say Zane said it. Zane said that Hungrybox knows how to switch it up, and he knows how to go in really well, and he can actually be, one of the most aggressive players when he does that. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. When HBox started clutch boxing people, one of the biggest changes he made was he started playing more offense. And I don't think HBox gets enough credit for his offense, personally. I think his defense is obviously, his strong thing. It's his main thing. It's what Puff's better at. But the thing is, if you just wait as Puff, you take 400 damage from Fox Laser and then you die to everything, right? You have to be able to nudge the Fox in various ways or encourage them to lose their position or whatever. And so the way Puff kind of works as a character is she is always like she's like the annoying younger sibling that is not touching you but threatening to touch you. It's like, I'm not, but I'm right here. And you have to do something about it. And it's like, it's right there, and if you move, then they move. And so it's always that sort of idea that HBox is playing around. And then because he has such a good grasp of like tempo changes, a lot of top players have gotten very good at that. He takes his defense, and then once he's like, okay, finally, this person is just playing a defensive pace like me, or they're just waiting, or they're setting up for their offense. Now I'm going to switch. and he just starts going in. And a good way to notice this, to give you a concrete example, is when you start seeing him wave dash in against Falcon, as an example. If you see HBox wave dashing in against Falcon, you can probably assume he's playing his game and not the Falcon's game, because it means that he's moving in. He's kept the Falcon from being able to intercept him by setting up an aerial that would stop him when he's moving in, and then he can then pressure the Falcon shield. Sometimes he'll wave dash twice and grab, so it's like he's really conditioned the Falcon at that point, for example, right? Or he'll go for an up air and then convert into rest or some other punish. And that's what I think makes HBox good, is his understanding of the player versus player interaction and abusing like how Puff's patience affects people, which is related to the spiritual bubble theory or whatever, but is the actual in-game stuff. And so I do think that and there's like other things I can talk about that are more specific, like how he spaces around people, and like if you want to talk about a Puff player, you can say, okay, well, how many jumps are they using before they make a decision, right? Like I was watching HBox Leffen and like just paying more attention to that because of the airtime limit discussion. And I was like, oh, it looks like HBox is using 2 or 3 jumps in the air and then coming down. And he's doing that, pretty reliably. It was on FD, the main game, because that was the game where, there was Leffen taunted and everything. So I was paying even more attention just to see what that, if there were things that were different. And that was kind of what I was noticing. So that's something for Puffs, management of your jumps is important, because your earlier jumps go higher, your later jumps go lower. And so you want to always be thinking about managing that. And if you use all of them, then your recovery is really bad. So you don't want to use all of them usually. And so, that sort of thing is just neat to think about. And so there's stuff to talk about Puff, there's stuff to talk about HBox, and then there's the overlap of the two. And it's tough, like you're saying, because HBox is Puff in a way, but, still being able to talk about how he uses Puff, how he uses that keep away to turn into his offense, I think is really important.
Interesting. I think talking about offense with Puff is interesting, because I think not a lot of people really understand. I wanted to ask you, go a little bit deeper into what is he looking for when he wave dashes forward against, like you said, like Falcon?
When HBox is wave dashing forward, he is generally banking on the fact that the person is going to like stay in place, or they're going to react late, because they're not, because like if HBox wave dashes, it means he probably landed from an aerial or something, which means the other person did not run in and challenge his landing.
Right.
And HBox wave dashing forward means
or something.
Yeah. So, but generally, HBox is going to be wave dashing in because he's like, okay, well, this person's going to wait, because if they try to run in, I've been landing and then back airing again and doing my defensive, my standard, my layer 1. And now if I think they're going to wait, or if I've convinced them to wait, now I'm going to land. They react late to me landing, or they react late to this first wave dash. And now it's a second mix up, because now it's like, okay, well, now by the time they've reacted, I could jump again. They're not going to be able to run and grab me, like in the case of Falcon, for example, because I could crouch. And so now I can try and go for pressure. I can go for an aerial because I'm closer, and I can get that out at a better way to make my aerial win. Because if Puff and Falcon are space, it can be better for Falcon, but if Puff's closer, it can be better for Puff. So these sorts of things just can matter more. And so that wave dash actually can avoid a lot, but you don't, like if Puff was closer, you wouldn't want to wave dash in, because Falcon controls his space with his aerial as well. And so, HBox has to do a lot of conditioning and tempo change to set that up. And so switching into that offensive gear means that he has to really, really lower the pace of the opponent, and maybe also set some extra conditioning to make that happen. And so I think it is cool to see it done, but it's also reliable, because he's able to win pretty reliably and turn around games by doing it. So it's really impressive to see.
Yeah, I feel like that makes a lot of sense, because especially with the way people view Hungrybox's pound usage, I feel like if you were to ask most people who are watching Modern Melee, and even most top players, like when HBox is getting aggressive, what is he doing? And I feel like they think about the overshoot pounds.
Right.
But then it's kind of like, what does he have beyond that, right? And yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you. It's like that's sort of that's the sort of thing that I think, because like we've seen that, and I think people remember, because it's easy to meme on Puff being a campy character. People remember they remember the timeouts, and they remember the ledge camping, or whatever you want to call it, and air stalling or whatever. But really, HBox isn't usually playing like that at all. But he's still usually winning. I mean, he usually makes it really far in the bracket. So it's like, okay, what else is he doing?
Right.
Clearly, he's not just camping his way into top 8s because, you can watch any of his matches, and that's just not what's happening. I mean, even his last couple matches with Slug, I remember even Zane was really surprised. Zane asked me how the set at Big House went between him and Slug, and I was like, HBox won pretty solidly. I think this was Big House, maybe it was Shine, but anyway, point is, I told Zane HBox won pretty solidly, and Zane was like, "Oh, did he camp him?" And I was like, "No. Played pretty aggressive, just kind of stayed out of the ranges of Icy's most threatening moves. Didn't get up air, didn't get wave dash up smashed, didn't get wave dash forward smashed, didn't get wave dash bared too much. Right, kind of played outside those ranges. Would bait Slug into the air and then punish him. Would split up Nana, and then I think just played the matchup really solid. And Zane at the time was kind of surprised. I remember Zane saying like, "Wow, I thought Slug would almost be the favorite if HBox wasn't camping," and this was only a couple months ago, right? So I feel like there's this discrepancy that people have in this. To say, I fully agree with Sean. I feel like there's a discrepancy in the way people talk about HBox's skills because it's harder to. Yeah, it's harder to.
It's just harder to watch Puff, not in like a enjoyment sense, but in just like a interaction sense, because Puff takes longer and she's farther away, and you don't see like lasers flying across the screen. So you're like, well, what is happening? Why is that? And like, and the pacing is slower. It's harder to follow. I totally get it.
I think it also, for what it's worth, I think it also kind of, there are just fewer Puffs at the top level than a lot of the other top tiers, and so we just have less of a comparison point. I almost feel like I would really need to like watch Toussaint versus somebody and then watch HBox play that person, or watch solo battle against somebody and then watch HBox play that person. I feel like that's how I would need to do it to really crystallize what HBox is specifically doing different against an individual player. But I mean, I think you listed a lot of good things there, PP. So I don't know. This is all to say, Sean. I don't think we have. This is not the end all be all. But I think it's a great question, and I think it's something I'm going to continue to dig into in the future. But I hope that we at least kind of scratch the surface today.
Right.
Sean.
Right.
Yeah, that was great. Sorry, my Discord dropped out for the last part there. But
you're good.
Thank you so much for having me. That was really insightful. That helped a lot. It was something I've been thinking about for a long time, and it must make sense that the way the language you guys were kind of putting on it already is kind of helping me to build that kind of knowledge. So yeah, thank you so much.
Love that. You got any shout outs for us on your way out today, sir?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Shout out Ireland. I'm not represented in Smash.
Hell yeah.
And shout out to commentary. I'm an actor and a performer, so I think people need to appreciate.
Oh, really?
You guys bring to the scene and that kind of thing a lot more. It's really sick, and I think people got to understand what you're doing is really hard, and you're doing it at a super high level. So thanks.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you so much.
Take care, gamer. Have a good rest of your day or night.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Amazing.
I love a good commentary shout out.
Yeah. Love a good Ireland shout out too. Of course, the best Irish player being S2J.
I was thinking about saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool to have top level Irish representation at all these tournaments all the time. S2J, is S2J even gonna be at Summit? I just realized I don't know which of the Falcons are gonna be.
I don't think
Usually there's one or two of them.
We got Wizzy
no S2J
there.
this time around. We got Wizzy, yeah. So okay. Is what it is. Well, I think we got time for at least one more caller.
Right.
And we're bringing on we've got Kenicky. Kenicky. Hello. Where are you calling from?
I've seen your posts on Reddit. What's up? You're over here on the Discord now. I'm watching you.
I'm branching out. Yeah, I'm calling in from New England, Boston area. And my question is kind of with the Ludwig Invitational using a format that's kind of used to Smash with Swiss, as well as offseason kind of doing something interesting as well. We've been seeing tournament formats kind of get shaken up a bit, and I think we'll probably see more experimentation in the future, especially with invitationals like the upcoming summit. So now like this summit is still running the same format as it has for the last few times, but let's say we live in a world where Summit decides to run like the most extreme format, which is the 16-person round robin. Who do you think comes out on top in the round robin?
Wow.
Like, taking into account both like all the overall matchup spreads and also like tournament endurance? Like, who do you think might do better or worse?
This isn't in one day, is it? Or how is this spread out? I think that's part of it, right?
They'll make it work, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but is it over the course of the whole summit, or because
over the course of the whole summit.
Does that
Yeah.
replace the Sunday finals,
Yeah,
or do you
let's
have?
say it just replaces like everything. It's just like
Oh
the
wow!
round robin from like whatever. You probably need to extend it by a couple days, but
Right. Right. So then we're taking into account it's not just how good you are at beating the best players, it's also how good you are at not losing to some of the other guys, right?
yeah.
That's a pretty good argument for Zane, isn't it?
I think Zane, Cody feels pretty consistent. Under normal circumstances, I would say Leffen. But I do got to say that, Leffen's got these.
Such a wild card, man.
Right now, it feels like Leffen's got some questions he needs to answer in the Fox Ditto, specifically, right? Sunsei and Moki, right?
Yeah, okay.
Zane, I think Zane is gonna be up there for sure. Amsa is shockingly consistent.
He
for
is
his character.
Did face a lot more, I think, especially Fox related struggles.
Yeah,
at the Ludwig Smash Invitational. So that puts a question mark there for me.
Agreed.
I don't know if that was maybe more people focusing on him, but he also had Moki, who he said was also just really good at the matchup, and so it's just something else to think about. Just the mid tier life, but maybe he does. Maybe he's like, yeah, it's fine, or maybe he just has a really hot day and he makes it work. But so that it's a little weird for me. I wouldn't personally put my money on the Amsa horse, but sure. I mean, he
is a horse.
That's true. He's done far more than I would have ever expected him to do as Yoshi. So who am I to say that he couldn't do it? But I think Zane, Cody, Leffen on good Leffen day or whatever. Sure.
Yeah.
But Zane and Cody are maybe the two. But I don't know. It's interesting, right? Like if I had to pick between Zane and Cody, I think does Cody get burnt out sometimes? I do think I see him talk about that occasionally. But Zane, I feel like he will play after tournaments are done and stuff. That guy's wild. So I think he'll
go to the cave and beat up Bobby Big Balls, Okay, I know Bobby doesn't live in Virginia anymore, or Maryland, but I do think that there's something to be said for the fact that like the way they beat some of these players, I feel like Zane, he mauls the second tier Foxes. Like at Big House, he didn't actually almost JV5, but like there was a game where for all intents and purposes, Moki was getting JV. Like Moki took 22%. Game 2 of their Big House set, right? It was like a 22% forced up. And I feel like when you've got certain matchups, Spacies, under such a domination that I feel like you can, and it's a really common matchup, I feel like you save a lot of energy, because you just go up there and you beat the shit out of who are the Fox at the fence. You got Sunsei Professor Pro, right? I feel like that really helps, both in confidence, conserving your energy, because those are players that are probably taking, they might be taking Mango and some of these guys to game 5 or Cody or whatever.
And endurance is such a big factor in all this, right? Because you're playing for so long, so many sets. And so just to reinforce your point, I think endurance, we're really, really testing for that in addition to consistency across matchups. So I just wanted to highlight that.
How do you like big HBox's odds? What do you think about him?
Oh, you're right.
Well, I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just pointing
I don't know
out.
why we just talked about him for a while. I don't know how I didn't think about it. But
I feel like HBox has like huge like up because he's like, I feel like all the floaty players are gonna, and like people who don't play Spacies especially are just gonna have bit of an advantage because they
more
don't have
stamina, right?
Constantly, yeah.
Does he get through all? Yeah, stamina for sure. But does he get through all those? There's a lot of
foxes,
and it feels like every event. And I never know how much of this is the other top players just kind of ragging on him for no reason. But I always feel like every event when HBox does well, there's always this thing where someone comes out and they're like, well, he didn't have to play this guy, he didn't have to play this guy. So in an event like this, he would play everybody, right? So how does that change his... So he's going to have to play Cody, Leffen, Mango, Zane.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know how he's... I don't know what his head-to-heads are looking like lately against all these... Alms as well, right? Wizzy. So I don't know.
I think his Wizzy one's been better lately.
Better. Especially after LSI.
Yeah. I'm not as sure about the others, especially AMSA. I think AMSA's been a little more favored lately against HBox.
Yeah.
So yeah, HBox is... It really depends on... it might be one of those funny things where it might even depend on the tournament scheduling. How much do people have to play back-to-back? How many matches do people have to play a day? Because I think the more you play, the more someone like HBox can just kind of really grind you out. And that could be pretty darn good for him. But then there's also stuff like, when does everyone play, right? And that could also be a factor. So that's really... HBox is a very interesting candidate for that, and I think he would set up like some HBox master plan for it, because I think as Puff,
he comes up with those.
You have to set up those steps in advance, right? And think about how to grind people out. So it'd be very interesting. I think HBox could definitely... I think he it's hard to say. He could get nerfed, he could get buffed, and it could just be bracket dependent, or not bracket, but like timing dependent. Or
timing dependent. My sleeper pick is Plup. I think Plup is only really in danger of the burnout factor of having to play that many.
Right. Yeah.
But, we're talking about this burnout factor, but okay, objectively speaking, bro, if you're doing a 16, that's not actually more melee than they already play at Summit.
Oh, maybe it's not. I don't actually
know what I'm
saying?
Imagine it's just you're playing an average of 3 to 4 matches a day.
Oh,
and I think right? You're playing everybody, and it's over the course of 4 days. If you do it over the course of 4 days, isn't it just 3 or 4 matches a day? That's really not that much. So
yeah, I don't.
On the first day, they only play like 2 matches each, right?
Yeah, but then on finals day, I mean, the people who are going into top 8, they play like 5 or 6 matches or 7. So I think it at least averages out. I think 4 hours. I think if you're playing a set, you're basically playing a set every 2 to 3 hours on average, which is really not that much.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, that's back to Zane.
I almost feel like Zane, and then the reason I like Plup is because I think having the 2 characters really helps him. Plup is in a unique spot where he might be one of the only people who's really going to take it to Zane.
Right.
Right. And then, character wise, he's basically, I feel like these days, he's usually playing a matchup that feels pretty good for him. Because of his character spread, even because of his play style. There's certain people that I think are like that are really scary for some of these other players that Plup kind of has a handle on. I think Plup does typically pretty well against Zane. Plup does typically very well against Wizzy. And I think he's so fast that I don't know. My sleeper pick for this kind of experimental format, I think Plup might actually be a secret. This might be a hot take, but I feel like he might be really good. But yeah, this would be really interesting. I've always liked that the Street Fighter community does those Topanga tournaments where they actually do a round robin, and they do round robins of like 1st to 7s. It's insane. But on the flip side, it's not 16 players. It's like 8 players or some smaller number of players. So, but those are cool because at the end of the day, you really can't say anything. Like if you don't.
You didn't dodge
anyone. So, it's I would love to see it at some point. I would love to see something like this, but, it won't be this event.
Yeah. That's a cool discussion. And I mean, thanks for bringing it to us, Kaneki. Any shout outs for us on your way out today?
I don't know. No one in particular, just shout outs to all Smash fans in general.
Wow,
I'm a big viewer of both Melee and Ult, so just everyone out there who's paying attention to Smash. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Very sick.
That's a very wide net today. So
love that. Ireland and Smash fans. All right, will you take care, gamer?
Yep, you too.
Thank you so much, Kennedy.
And we got one more caller, someone who actually has been on the program before. Ryobeat, what's up? Welcome to the program. Where are you calling in from, gamer?
Ryobeat.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Yo, what's up?
Hello. I'm calling in from NYC. As I do. That's at NYC.
Yes.
New Yorkers are very self-patting on the back about how cool we are. I'm gonna do the same. Let's go NYC.
All right.
we love ourselves. But I do have a question because there's been a lot of discourse on commentary recently. And I feel like in a lot of ways what I'm seeing, and I think everyone's had a commentary take here and there. Right. But like it feels like every style of commentary gets a type of hate. And I'm kind of confused as to like what direction the community really wants to go and stuff like that. Like I don't know what people really like. Obviously it's stylistic. But I don't want to do too much of like, oh, like tell me all the bad ones. But what I really want to ask you two is like, what are personally some of your favorite commentary attributes and qualities? And do you have any recent memories or examples of those attributes? Because when I think of my commentary recently for this year, like I thought everyone was kind of killing it. I thought Big House, Toph and Scar, like that was some of the best commentary I've heard all year, as well as Jorge and Junebug. I thought they did a great job at Double Down, and you guys kind of did it for like completely different reasons. I feel like they joked around a lot more, and then like you guys kind of had like this very you and Scar had the exasperated like on the edge of our seats, no one knows what's going to happen kind of vibe, and I really liked both. So I'm just curious what you guys look out for and what's like something recently that you're like, wow, that commentary moment really like stuck with me.
I'll go first. For me, I strongly feel like the thing that my heroes, Brandon and Phil, when I got into commentary, that they did better than anyone was they made me feel like I was in the venue with them. I always say this. I don't know that I do this in the same way as them because I think I'm stylistically very different, obviously. But that is the meta level thing that they do that I really just appreciate and would like to kind of embody. And I think from there, my decisions in terms of how I choose to present myself at each tournament, LSI, with 4 or 5 people joking around on the couch with Ludwig and stuff, it's going to be a different vibe than me and Scar more buttoned up for top 8 at Big House. But at the end of the day, I would hope that the people tuning in have a little bit of that feel. And I think if it feels different from one event to the next, it's because, well, they're different events and what it's like to attend those tournaments is different. But I, would hope that what I'm doing with my commentary is sort of inspiring people to go to more tournaments. That's my answer. And I think that is my quality or my attribute that I value the most is the ability to make someone feel like they're there. Because then I'm hoping that they'll want to eventually actually go there because they say, wow, this is so cool. I actually want to be a part of this and kind of become more invested in the scene. And for what it's worth, every time I tune into the nightclub, I got a shout out New York for you, Rybeat. I think that the nightclub does an awesome job of this.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, gonna be hard to follow up very powerful commentator man, but I will do my best. So for me, I think, I find myself most often enjoying commentary that's fun, and there's a fine line for me with it because I think sometimes people that are having fun, what they're actually doing is they're just like dunking on people, and I don't really like, to a certain point, I don't actually enjoy that anymore. Like if you're like it all, like I think sometimes we go like a little too far with it, or it gets a little mean spirited sometimes. Not my thing personally. But I mean, look, I'm a Ludwig fan. He's entertaining. When he was goofing off with people, I really enjoyed it. Everyone was kind of bouncing off each other really well, or just coming up with like threads to follow or things to call back to, or like setting up like a thing that we're pretend mad about even though we're not, or or whatever, like that kind of stuff. It's like fun. It's not really hurting anyone. It's surprising. It's a good, and then like you come back and you talk about the match in a surprising way, or something happens in the match, you're like, oh, see, this is like what I was talking about, and that's fun. I enjoy that. I also remember when Wobbles was doing more commentary, and he was keeping it informative in a way, and then he would also kind of like have these like Wobbles style jokes that he would like throw in, and I enjoy, like, because I think sometimes with people that are informative they can be too dry. I've been accused of this very fairly, I think, and so this is something that when I'll be listening for information, keeping it interesting, but still maybe a little informative can be fun for me too. And those are some of the quick ones for me.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing a lot of like if I could like synthesize a little bit like your points, like I think it seems like it's kind of similar where it's like it feels like we all like different aspects of commentary, but I like what Toph said where it's like it's also about like fitting the moment and fitting the event. Like I actually think like analytical commentary in like the time of AMSA rising up is so interesting to me when I can see someone like did the homework on why AMSA is winning because I don't know why AMSA is winning. And like that's super sick. Though there's sometimes where it's just like, you know, Mango and HBox kind of had a little back and forth online or something. And this is about like pride and GOAT status. And so this it's a little bit more like, you know, a little scrappier, a little like, ooh, he's gonna be mad after this type of thing. And like kind of fitting the moment in the tournament. So I guess it just kind of reassured me that like really the styles, like they all have a place depending on the moment, which I didn't really think about.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's definitely something we think about, and I mean, yeah, I mean, even down to is it a local, is it a regional, is it a major, is it are there 2 people on the mic or 4? You know, it's a different act, but I think that like putting the viewer first and thinking what thinking about the fun factor, thinking about the experience you want the viewer to have, I think that really can be a guiding star for a lot of people, you know.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. I think that kind of covered my my question. I guess the only like maybe last touch is that do you two have like a favorite commentary moment or top 8 this year that like you felt like was really good that you're just like, wow, I thought those 2 killed it, or in the last 2 years, if this year weren't sure.
Oh man.
For other people, well, for me, I think the best job I think I've ever done, or that we've ever done, was me and Scar at Big House for sure. I think we did a better job. I think we did a better job in that top 8 because I try to take stock of how I think I'm doing and how I think we're doing because we bounced and Scar was feeling weird about that event coming into it, like he was thinking of not going, and Jungle Guy basically had to contact him and kind of talk him into it. And I think for Scar, he kind of has this thing where he feels like he doesn't want to feel like he's out of touch. People joke about Scar being out of touch and not knowing some of the new blood. And he doesn't like feeling like he's out of touch because he wants to embody the everyman, the common melee player, if you will.
Right.
And I was kind of telling him, whether you feel like you're embodying that or not, I think you should give this event a shot because I still think that even if you're not as tuned into the melee scene, I think you've still got a very high level of empathy, and I think you've got a very high level of insight that I still feel like is being unmatched by a lot of people. And then on the flip side, for other people, I mean, well, it's hard for me to not say like Brandon and Phil, but I will say one of my most enjoyable commentary experiences was actually watching the first half of Big House Top 8, which was Brandon and Vish, and I thought they did an amazing job. They made some jokes that I thought were really fucking hilarious. I think Brandon made a joke about how Yoshi's story got gentrified that I thought was hysterical. And I think Vish might have followed up by calling Randall Whole Foods or something. It was really funny. It was one of my favorite commentary moments.
Oh my god!
Absolutely, because this was in the context of like, oh, Falco used to be considered very strong on this stage, but now this is considered a winning stage for Fox in the matchup.
Oh,
the stage got gentrified. So I thought that was A++. I thought that was so funny, and the chat loved it. One of the funniest things I've ever seen on commentary. So to me, this is very recent, so it's in recent memory, but that was one of my favorite moments. Yeah.
Oh man, that's beautiful. There's no following that up, but I will say anyway that I have goldfish memory. If you've listened to more of this episode, you know that I can't remember what happened 2 weeks ago at these tourneys. But I will just reiterate, I really enjoyed Ludwig because I'm a fan, but I enjoyed everyone kind of molding around that, and Ludwig not like just trying to take up too much focus, but coming in at appropriate times. And
Ludwig even hopping on for Ultimate, and which is a game he does not know, and he was just and he would defer to the other guy. I thought he did a great job on that too, and I think that shows a lot of class and a lot of understanding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I thought Ludwig did a great job. I thought he did being next to I guess more seasoned commentators. I thought one of the funniest things he would do is just kind of break the tension with a dumb question intentionally.
Right.
Like he would just be like, so HBox is an asshole for doing this, right? Just in the middle of something very serious. And I think that was a great way to throw it in. Instead of it didn't sound like he was whining about the match. It sounded like he wanted to change the pace really in a funny way.
Well, he's also the voice. He's also the voice of a lot of chatters with I think that one, right? And so I think other people are oh, he's like me for real.
Yeah,
if they do that one.
In that sense.
I always like when I think that's part of what Brandon and Phil actually can do really well is they'll channel the everyman, and sometimes they do that by putting on a voice and pretending they're a person on Twitter. But regardless, they still do it, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, 100%. I gotta shout out Toph and Scar for I've watched winners finals and grand finals so many times of the Big House for the commentary, and like dozens of times. I have the commentary memorized. I remember the most. It was really cool for me. Wow. And winners finals, it just felt like you and Scar were falling off of a waterfall in fear of watching someone who's in front of you falling off the waterfall. And there's this moment at the end where it's last stock going back and forth, and Scar does the Toph, but you respond with Bobby. You're both just losing it, and me and JoJo are we really want to edit someone falling off a
literally a video,
cliff.
yeah.
It's Bobby.
Oh and, my god.
And then I think he almost dies and he does it, and Scar even cracks his voice and he's he lives. It's a horror story.
I remember that. I remember that moment. Yeah. I remember
it was crazy. Because I was definitely watching oh my god, this is a horror story. And then it just ends. There it is.
Oh.
It super got me.
Yeah.
And it super hit.
I really, we had a really good time with those finals, and it's funny because I was thinking about it. I wish there was a way to do that. It's really hard. This is just a little tangent. It's hard to do that with 4 or 5 people on the couch. I will say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Unless somehow all of you are really into it. Yeah, but if there's even one guy that's not yelling, it's weird. Everyone would have to be yelling. That's how, and you can steer it in that direction with 2 people because it's this thing, and you kind of are, it's Bobby, and it's this back and forth. But with 5 people, it's you really need everyone, and usually you're not going to have 5 people. The whole fun of the 5-man couch, just to draw a distinction, the fun is that you have a lot of very different styles typically. And so you're naturally gonna you're gonna talk less, and you're gonna have less of a sort of say in the energy or what have you. So it's fun and it's interesting for a different reason. And this was one of the most recent wave of commentary, whatever people talking about blah blah blah. I didn't like the commentary at this event, and I think it's just a stylistic thing. At that point, it's to me, I didn't really take it personally from the standpoint that I think people even think I might have, because to me it's just there's nothing that really can be done once that's decided. If it's going to be a Summit style couch, the Smash Summit's probably going to be the same way. I think it's just you're going to get what you're going to get with just more people, because you're going to have more viewpoints and more people, so, yeah, I don't know. I always have fun. And I think that getting into the thinking about the viewership experience and stuff like that, I think is always a good principle. And I'm glad that you in particular really resonated with the Big House commentary, because it's always cool when especially when top players and really skilled players like the commentary, because I feel like if you understand the game at a deeper level, then it means more to me that I'm on the right track, let's say.
Oh yeah, it was really phenomenal. I because I've had my periods of Peach commentary not great, but this for the first time I was or just seeing all the Reddit comments, I'm I feel out of touch with the hate. I'm having a great time. Like, what's going on?
Nice.
But it was sick. And I've also like shifted a little from the top player, like, oh, just perfectly analyze everything. I care more about like, just making it seem like something I very like too. And I'll try to cut it here so I don't ramble too much. But I really have been liking just like, because there was a moment where people tried Peach commentary by saying everything that happened, and it was just kind of confusing for me, and I knew they didn't super understand the tech, and it was tough, and they would have to just sit there, and that would be with every character there. They would have to sit down and do that. Yeah. But one thing I've really been like liking, I think this is mainly from like, I would say Scar. I see you do it a little bit as well, where it's like, you'll take one thing that's like difficult and new and almost highlight it over and over, as opposed to try to talk on every new thing. And I think like highlighting the difficulty hits so hard, because it's just like Amsa just did something that's like one frame. Like if he missed that, like the whole tournament's over, and yet he still had the courage to go for it. Like I think that hits me, and also like the everyman, because it's just like, wow, was it really that hard? And it's like, yeah,
it's like that.
That new?
Yeah, it's like it's almost like it gives people something to latch onto. And yeah, I guess you're right. It's funny. You're right that often it might not even necessarily be that whatever happened truly was the standout thing or strategy or what have you that won that person that match. And it's better when it really does align. I mean, if there's what would be an example of that? I don't know. I remember Zane versus Rishi, that one Big House 7 or whatever it was, where or Big House 9 or whatever it was, where it was like one frame was the deciding factor of who won that set. Something like that. Like it's great, if whoever was, I don't think I commentated that even, because I think I was watching that from the crowd, but if whoever commentated that, for example, not that they would have known it was a one frame moment, but if whoever commentated that, for example, said something like, "Oh my goodness," to explain what just happened, that was literally a 60th of a second decided that, if someone went into that level of detail and it really truly was the thing that decided the set, I think that would be like perfect. But I think you're right that it does give people something to latch onto, and I think that it's a good way to get people to care and about learning something new. They're learning something new, but they also are doing it in this very engaging way.
Right, and very like respectful to like the top players. I also thought you guys did like like these are two titans of the games. These are two tournament winners. These are people hitting impossible things. Like all that stuff, I think makes a viewer think like, wow, these guys are like insane, and I'm watching. As opposed to everyone's playing bad, or like
right. I
remember there's a top player time with that where it was just like, why didn't the commentators just say everyone played 1 out of 10? I'm like, that would be sad to say.
It would be sad. Yeah, it would just be sad. No one. It's just a Debbie Downer kind of thing. And because it's easy to do that, especially at Summit when the top players. You'll come down and you'll even be commentating. You'll just go, I played really bad. It's like, but you also played pretty good. Even if you don't feel like it in the moment, because you did some stuff that 99% of players can't do. So it is what it is.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah. Anyways, thank you for the question, Ryobeat. Especially loving your shout out, and of course everyone should watch the nightclub on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, actually it's tomorrow.
NYC Melee.
Oh yeah.
I
retired from TOing, but now I entered and I won the last one. So
you won. Wow, who got second and third?
Captain Smuckers and Kata.
Smuck's back. Wow.
Yeah, Kata's back on box.
Good. So that's awesome.
It's a great time. So tomorrow, all right, NYC Melee, he'll be great.
Are you going to defend your title?
Ooh, I can only hope so. I'm going to do my best. There might be 2 Saint there, and we might have to split because it's 10 timeouts. But I'll do my best.
Okay. Best of luck to those of you watching on YouTube. I think usually these videos go up on Wednesday. So when you're not watching whatever's going on at Summit. Well, I guess Summit usually the stream starts Thursday these days, so feel free to tune into that. Thank you so much for your call, Ryby, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you guys. Bye.
See ya.
All right. And I think that with that, I think Ryby was our last caller. Yep. And I think the only thing left for us to do, PP, as we get ready to head into the long, couple days of Smash Summit, where I'm sure we'll be just watching a bunch of Melee, is I guess we got to think of a community voice question for the people out there.
I came up with a couple. Would you like to hear them?
Oh my God. Yeah, but don't but are we going to give them a couple or are we going to give them
Well,
one?
we're gonna pick one.
Oh, we're going to pick one? Okay.
Yeah, is that okay?
Let's hear them. Let's hear them.
Okay, so the first one is not Summit related, but the second one is. The first one is, I think we've asked a lot of questions about, we'll talk about a lot of competitive things and rankings and all that stuff, and I think that's good. But sometimes I think it's just good to celebrate Melee in a slightly different way. So one of the questions was, what is your favorite thing about Melee that's not a competitive thing? And that could be the Dreamland song because you love clapping off rhythm.
Oh my god!
Or it could be the way knee sounds or whatever, right? I think those are fun. That's like a fun thing to think about. But the Summit related question, which I also think would be funny to look at the answers for next week, would be, what would you say to the winner of Summit? Because obviously this comes out before, but if we look at the answers next week, what if someone's like, "Hey, congratulations, Leffen, on the win," and he does win, then it's cool. But then if he doesn't, then it's humorous because it was different. Maybe that's not good, but that's something I thought about.
I like that question. I like both those questions. I feel like for me, the problem is I would say something very different to whoever wins Summit. The only problem is wouldn't you say something really different based on who won? You know what I mean? Like if it's Amsa, I would.
Yeah, so you would have you can't be too generic. Like congratulations on the win, but, right? Like if you like I say you call the Amsa win, you're like, dude, Amsa, yo, I mean that's crazy. You're like on the track to be number one, but then he gets ninth. That's tough, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's just so many good players at Summit. It could just happen, and so it's one of those things. And that's the risk, right? That's kind of the risk. That's the gamble of it.
I like people having to. They have to. There's going to be a little bit of risk incurred with that question. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually really into both those. Man. Yeah. Let's just honestly. I almost feel like we've done this before. Where. Sure. We've also done this before. Where we kind of preface it by saying, if there's a question, because sometimes guests will provide two little questions, and if you have one that you particularly want to answer, feel free. But let's say that officially that's the question.
Officially, what would you say to the winner of Summit?
To the winner of Summit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then if you want to do a different one or you want to answer the other one, it's what's your favorite non-competitive aspect of Melee?
Right. What do you mean by non-competitive? Because that can mean, to some people, that can mean not even playing just tournaments, but to some people that can mean not playing at all.
Oh, yeah, I guess I more so meant the game itself.
Okay, the game itself. Okay, because I would say something along the lines of going to Denny's after the tournament.
Right.
Right.
You love shouting out the post-tourney Denny's. That's strong.
It's
there's nothing wrong with
the friends we made along the way.
Right. Absolutely.
The real tournament.
Absolutely.
The real competition was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
It's not a true. You're not a smasher until Mute King stole on your French fries. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Do you want to keep it about the game or not?
I'll go in any direction. I think the viewers, the more flexibility we give them, the better answers we're gonna get. That's right.
Yes.
All right. Those are our questions for the week. You can answer either or both, or neither, I guess. But then we're not gonna highlight you on the thing. So
yeah.
So you can't answer neither. Exactly. But great episode. I think that I'm gonna be curious about how many of our sort of predictions and sort of our analysis of the state of the top level of the game, how much of that pans out, and how many surprises there end up being this weekend at Smash Summit, or really this week at Smash Summit, because it is a multiple day affair.
Right.
And with that, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope to see all of you in the BTS Smash stream chat. Of course, as we're spectating this thing, tell me if I did a good job on commentary. I'm going to be there commentating. I'm flying down tonight, and maybe PP will pop in there. Maybe you can catch him in there. I don't know. Who knows? Drop some PPMD Craigasms. Who can say? Well, thank you, PP.
Thank you, Toph.
Yeah. Well, this has been Radio Melee signing out.
Signing out.